He was 93 when the final truth settled over him. A quiet shadow in a room filled with trophies that glimmered like echoes of a past no one could fully understand. Ray Guy had spent his entire life mastering the art of hang time, suspending footballs in the air long enough for stadiums to hold their breath. What no one knew was that he had also spent decades suspending something else, 5 hidden truths that weighed far more than any punt he ever struck. These truths followed him across NFL fields, locker rooms, training camps, and long nights when silence was the only companion left. Fans saw the perfect spiral, the impossible control. The ball that climbed into the sky as if obeying a higher command. They never saw the pressure that shaped him, the rivalries that scarred him, the betrayals he never forgot, or the expectations that crushed him long before the league acknowledged his greatness. Even in his final years, when his legacy was finally crowned with the Hall of Fame honor he had been denied for so long, he carried these truths quietly, almost protectively. The question is simple. Why would a man who changed the sport forever keep so many secrets locked away until the end? Why did a legend who sent footballs into the heavens never reveal the storms beneath his calm control? Today, we uncover the 5 hidden truths that defined Ray Guy and shaped the journey he never fully shared. Before the myth settled around his name, before the Hall of Fame debates and the decades of disbelief that a punter could ever reshape the sport, Ray Guy was simply a quiet force rising from the fields of Mississippi. He watched the world with calm intensity, as if every moment was a puzzle he needed to solve. When he stepped onto an NFL field for the first time in 1973, the Oakland Raiders were already a franchise built on swagger and noise. Yet, the man who would become their most precise weapon carried a different kind of power. He did not shout. He did not pose. He simply lifted the ball into the sky and made the stadium look up. Tom Flores and John Madden often said there was something different about him. Other punters played the field. Ray Guy played physics. He controlled time by controlling the air itself. His kicks climbed higher than anyone had seen. His hang time turned chaos into order. His precision turned pressure into something almost serene. In a league defined by collisions and violence, Ray Guy introduced a strange kind of elegance that opponents feared more than they admitted. But behind that elegance lived a constant battle. Punters were dismissed as specialists who drifted on the edges of the real game. Ray Guy refused to accept that. He carried the weight of proving that his position mattered. Every snap became a test. Every boot became a declaration. He felt it in his coach's demands, in the media questions, in the doubts of teammates who did not understand how much strategy lived inside a single, well-placed punt. The league around him changed rapidly. Defensive monsters stalked quarterbacks. Offenses exploded with new formations. The Raiders' identity remained fiery, unpredictable, and rebellious. In the middle of that storm, Ray Guy stood still, a man defined by control, in a team defined by fury. That contrast made him invaluable, but it also isolated him. He faced subtle tensions with teammates who measured greatness through hits, touchdowns, and spectacle. He felt the pressure of owners who wanted results without understanding the science he practiced. He learned quickly that respect in the NFL was not given. It was taken through moments so unforgettable that even critics fell silent. Throughout the 70s and 80s, he became the standard by which all punters were measured. Yet, with each achievement came new shadows. Expectations tightened around him. Rivalries simmered with players who underestimated him, then resented him. Coaches pushed him to perfection, sometimes beyond the limits of what his body or patience wanted to give. And quietly, deeper conflicts began forming behind the scenes, shaping the 5 hidden truths he kept for the rest of his life. His story is not just about a man kicking a ball. It is about the battle for recognition in a league that rarely honors subtle brilliance. It is about the private wars he fought while the public celebrated his calm mastery. There was a quiet fraternity inside the NFL during the 1970s and 80s, a group known as the Specialists. They were kickers and punters who lived on islands at the edge of the roster, never fully embraced by the violent heartbeat of the league. Many of them drifted through teams without recognition. They played roles that fans often forgot and teammates rarely celebrated. When Ray Guy arrived and instantly became the most feared and admired specialist in the game, that fraternity began to shift. Some saw him as a revolution. Others saw him as a threat. A few never forgave the way he changed the hierarchy overnight. The resentment began with expectations. Ray was drafted in the first round, something unheard of for a punter. Veteran kickers who had spent years fighting for minimum respect felt overshadowed before he even entered the locker room. They watched the media celebrate him. They listened to coaches rave about his hang time, his precision, and his ability to tilt the field. Many specialists wondered why he received glory that had never been given to them. Some believed he made their roles appear smaller. Others believed he made them replaceable. Ray felt this tension in small conversations, sidelong glances, and the thin smiles of men who did not want to accept that punting had entered a new era. The moment that ignited everything came in a cold December game when the Raiders needed distance deep in their territory. The wind cut across the field, and even seasoned specialists felt uneasy. Ray stepped forward with calm control, focusing on the ball as if the wind were nothing more than background noise. The snap came clean. His foot met the ball with a sound that silenced the crowd. The punt sailed upward higher than seemed possible, rising above the swirling wind as if guided by invisible hands. For 6 full seconds, the league witnessed something new. The returner waved his teammates away and let the ball fall helplessly inside the 10. Coaches were stunned. Opponents were demoralized. Reporters wrote that Ray Guy had done something no one else could do. That moment became a line in the sand. It separated the past from the future. It turned Ray into the standard. It also deepened the bitterness of specialists who believed they would never be measured by fair standards again. After that game, Ray felt the cold distance from men who once treated him as a peer. Some accused the league of exaggerating his impact. Others quietly hoped he would falter so they could reclaim the old balance. But Ray continued to perform with the same calm dominance. He never spoke against them. He simply let the ball rise into the air and tell the truth for him. The cold truth is that the specialists who resented him never let go of their frustration. Ray did not hate them. He simply understood that his success rewrote the value of their roles. Their bitterness followed him throughout his career, a silent rivalry that lived in the shadows of every kick he sent into the sky. He carried that knowledge to the end. Al Davis was a force unlike any other in professional football. He was demanding, brilliant, relentless, and obsessed with winning. Every player who walked into the Raiders organization felt his presence. Some thrived under it, others cracked. Ray Guy understood early that punting for the Raiders meant punting not just for a team, but for a man whose expectations pierced through every mistake. Davis admired Ray. He valued his rare talent. Yet that admiration came wrapped in the kind of pressure that could harden a player or quietly consume him. Ray learned to live under a spotlight that never dimmed. The friction between them did not come from anger or personal dislike. It came from a standard so high that even Ray struggled to meet it. Al Davis believed that every punch should change the game. He wanted distance, height, and precision on command. A good performance was expected. A great one was required. Anything less became a problem. Ray felt the tension each week. Coaches carried Davis notes to practice. Reporters repeated his comments. Ray heard the subtle reminders that perfection was not a goal, but an obligation. The pressure weighed on him. Even small missteps felt magnified. He respected Davis, but sometimes feared disappointing him more than he feared opposing defenses. The moment that defined their relationship came during a playoff game when the Raiders' offense stalled deep in their own territory. Davis stood on the sideline, arms folded, eyes fixed on Ray with an intensity that felt colder than the winter wind. The stadium buzzed with nerves. Ray stepped onto the field, but something felt off in the snap. He caught the ball cleanly adjusted and delivered a punt that was solid but not spectacular. It did not soar. It did not twist the field. It simply did its job. The crowd reacted with polite approval, but Davis did not. He stared at Ray as he jogged to the sideline, his expression sharp and unreadable. Reporters noticed. Teammates noticed. Ray noticed more than anyone. For days afterward, the conversation in the building revolved around that single punt, a reminder that Davis expected brilliance at every moment, even when the conditions made it nearly impossible. That game marked a shift. Ray still respected Davis deeply. Davis still valued Ray as a weapon no other team possessed. Yet an unspoken strain lingered between them. Davis was not a man who allowed humanity to soften performance. Ray was not a man who complained, but the expectations shaped him. He became harder on himself. He spoke less. He internalized more. The constant pursuit of perfection became both his strength and his burden. The cold truth is that Ray Guy never escaped the weight of Al Davis' expectations. He did not resent the man, but he carried the strain of always being asked for the impossible. It was a silent rivalry, a demanding relationship that shaped his career more than he ever showed publicly. And long after he retired, the pressure remained one of the 5 truths he held quietly inside. The men who stood deepest on the field waiting for a ball to fall from the sky lived in a different kind of fear. Punt returners were measured by courage and instincts, by their ability to turn chaos into opportunity. They were built to attack space, not surrender to it. But when Ray Guy stepped onto an NFL field, many of them felt something they never admitted publicly. They felt helpless. They felt controlled. They felt hunted by a man who never chased them, yet always dictated the moment. Ray did not intimidate with size or speed. He intimidated with altitude. Returners knew that once the ball rose off his foot, their freedom vanished. The rivalry began with pride. Returners believed they were game changers. They believed they could tilt a field with one cut. But Ray's punts erased their angles, trapped them inside shrinking pockets of space, and removed the creativity that defined their craft. Many believed he made them look ordinary. Others believed he made them look afraid. Some quietly resented that their reputations suffered while Ray's grew. They felt the media praising him for neutralizing them. They felt coaches doubting them after every fair catch. Ray saw the frustration in their reactions. He heard the irritation in post-game comments. To him, it was strategy. To them, it felt personal. The defining moment came during a primetime game when one of the league's most dangerous returners waited near midfield, confident he would finally prove that Ray was mortal. The stadium lights burned bright against the dark sky. The crowd roared as Ray caught the snap. His foot struck the ball with a clean, sharp sound that made players on both sidelines lift their heads. The ball climbed higher than expected, drifting into a perfect arc that pinned the returner beneath it like a spotlight. For nearly 7 seconds, he waited, unable to move, unable to plan. By the time the ball settled into his hands, he was engulfed by the coverage unit. He was driven backward, swallowed by a wave of silver and black. The play became a symbol of Ray's dominance. Commentators replayed it for weeks. They called it the moment that showed how one man could erase another's talent. Returners across the league watched the clip and felt a mix of awe and resentment. They realized that Ray did not just change field position, he changed reputations. After that night, Ray sensed the rivalry deepening. Returners approached games against him differently. Some played cautiously, others played recklessly. A few tried to speak bravely in interviews, but the tension was obvious. They knew that facing Ray Guy meant accepting that their best weapon, open space, might never appear. He received no apology, no admiration, only the silent acknowledgement that he controlled the part of the field they believed belonged to them. The cold truth is that many returners never forgave Ray Guy for making them look powerless. They respected him in private moments, but the bitterness lived on. Ray did not carry hatred toward them. He simply understood that his brilliance demanded a price, and the ones who paid it were the men who stood beneath the falling ball with no escape. That truth stayed with him long after he left the game. There was a strange paradox at the heart of Ray Guy's career. Coaches adored what he produced, yet many never fully understood how he produced it. They came from a world defined by systems drills, repetitions, and playbooks. Punters in their eyes were meant to be shaped like every other position. They wanted predictable mechanics, measurable adjustments, and complete obedience to coaching philosophy. But Ray Guy was different. He operated with instincts that lived outside their diagrams. His timing, his ball drop, his rhythm, his explosiveness all felt more like an art than a technique. That art frustrated coaches who wanted mastery they could claim credit for. The conflict began innocently enough. A new coach would arrive study film of Ray and assume he could refine him further. They tried adjusting his foot angle. They tried altering his drop point. They suggested minor tweaks that worked for other punters. But Ray quickly felt when those adjustments disrupted his natural motion. He trusted his body. He trusted the years of repetition that had shaped his technique long before the NFL called his name. Coaches mistook his quiet resistance for stubbornness. In truth, he simply knew the difference between improvement and interference. The more they pushed, the more tension brewed beneath the surface. Ray wanted harmony. Coaches wanted control. The defining moment came during a heated practice in the mid-1980s. A special teams coordinator believed he had discovered a flaw in Ray's technique. He insisted Ray raise the ball a fraction higher before the drop. Ray warned that it felt unnatural. The coach pressed the issue, raising his voice in front of players and staff. Ray reluctantly complied. The snap came. The ball rose slightly higher. His foot connected a fraction light. The punt wobbled and drifted off course. It was rare enough for Ray to mishit a ball that everyone on the field froze. The coordinator barked that the mistake proved why the adjustment was necessary. Ray remained quiet, but something shifted inside him. He knew that his instincts had been right, and the forced change had created the very error the coach believed he was fixing. Teammates whispered about the incident for days. Some sided with Ray, others excused the coach. But the moment revealed a truth that Ray carried quietly. Not every authority understood greatness. After that confrontation, Ray became more guarded. He listened politely to coaching suggestions, but he filtered everything through his own internal compass. He corrected himself when needed, refined his approach when conditions demanded it, but he never again allowed a coach to dictate his mechanics. Some coaches respected his autonomy, others resented it. A few believed he was uncoachable. They never admitted that his results surpassed anything their systems could replicate. His precision continued. His hang time remained unmatched. Yet the tension persisted. The relationship between artist and architect rarely found peace. The cold truth is that Ray Guy never fully fit inside the coaching framework. He was too precise to be molded, too instinctive to be controlled. He did not hate the coaches who pushed him, but he carried the memory of their frustration and misunderstanding. It became one of the truths he held close, a reminder that even in a disciplined league, some talent lives beyond instruction. For most players, the Hall of Fame is a distant dream. For Ray Guy, it became a quiet battlefield that lasted nearly 3 decades. He had transformed punting from a forgotten role into a strategic weapon. He had redefined hang-time field control and the very physics of special teams. His legacy was unchallenged. His impact was undeniable. Yet year after year, the Hall of Fame selection committee passed over his name. Reporters speculated. Fans protested. Former players shook their heads. Ray rarely spoke about it, but silence itself told the deeper story. The institution meant to honor football's greatest heroes was also the institution that wounded him most. The conflict began with perception. Many committee members believed punters did not belong in the hall. They argued that punting was a supporting act rather than a defining force. They insisted that the game's true legends were quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, defensive titans, and historic coaches. In their eyes, Ray's precision was remarkable, but not worthy of Canton. Ray heard the rationale. He saw the pattern. Each year reinforced the idea that his contributions were invisible to the people who had the power to acknowledge them. He never voiced anger publicly, but privately the sting ran deep. It was not rejection of a nomination. It was rejection of an entire position that he had spent his life elevating. The defining moment came during a year when Ray believed the barrier might finally break. Analysts reported that support was growing. Former players campaigned for him. The sports world anticipated history. When the announcement arrived, the news hit like a cold wind. Ray Guy was not selected. Cameras captured his expression in the hours that followed. He smiled politely, thanked supporters, and spoke with grace, but the disappointment showed in the stillness of his eyes. That night, he sat alone in a quiet room staring at photographs from his playing days. He remembered the championship runs, the game-changing punts, the thousands of fans who had chanted his name. Yet the honor he had earned through decades of precision remained locked behind a door he could not open. That moment crystallized the truth. Greatness was not always enough. Recognition required something more. As the years passed, Ray became a symbol of a broken system. Analysts called his omission a stain on the hall. Fans referred to him as the greatest player denied his rightful place. Younger punters studied his tape and wondered why a man who created their profession's blueprint remained unacknowledged. Ray stayed calm in public, but those closest to him understood the weight he carried. His love for the game remained strong, yet the absence of recognition carved a wound that quiet dignity could not completely hide. The cold truth is that Ray Guy never hated the Hall of Fame, but he never forgot the pain it caused him. When he was finally inducted in 2014, the applause was loud and long overdue. But the celebration could not erase the years of silence that shaped his view of the institution. He carried that truth into his later life. It was the deepest of all the hidden truths, the one that reminded him that even legends can be unseen for far too long. There was one man inside the Raiders organization who understood Ray Guy more deeply than most. He was a quiet veteran, a long snapper who spent countless hours working beside Ray in empty stadiums long after teammates had gone home. Their roles linked them in ways few outsiders recognized. Each punt relied on perfect timing between two specialists who lived in the margins of the roster, yet carried pressure equal to any star on the field. This teammate admired Ray, but also witnessed the toll that perfection demanded. He saw the long silences after practice. He saw the frustration Ray hid behind calm discipline. He noticed the rare moments when Ray questioned whether anyone truly understood the weight he carried. Their tension did not come from rivalry. It came from truth. The long snapper once told Ray that his talent was both a gift and a burden. He meant it as respect, but Ray took it as something heavier. To Ray, it felt like someone had finally spoken aloud the thing he tried hardest to conceal. Greatness isolated him. Expectations tightened around him. The search for flawless execution robbed him of the simple joy he once found in the game. He appreciated the honesty, but he also recoiled from it. He preferred silence over vulnerability, control over exposure. The moment that shifted their friendship came after a playoff win. The locker room erupted with celebration, but Ray slipped into a side hallway. His teammate followed and saw him sitting alone, exhausted not from the game, but from the pressure behind it. He offered a few quiet words, but Ray only nodded. That night marked a turning point. Their connection never broke, but it carried a permanent distance. The cold truth is that Ray Guy respected the man who saw too much, but he guarded his inner world even from those closest to him. Ray Guy's life in football was built on moments most fans never noticed. While quarterbacks celebrated touchdowns and defenses roared after sacks, Ray shaped games through silence. His brilliance lived in the pauses between plays and the seconds when the ball climbed higher than seemed humanly possible. Those seconds told the story of a man who mastered control in a sport defined by chaos. Yet, behind that control lived the truths he carried, truths that shaped his journey far more than the perfect spirals that fell from the clouds. The weight of expectation began early. Ray understood quickly that he could never afford to be average. A mediocre throw from a quarterback could be forgotten under the next play. A missed block from a lineman could be forgiven in the rush of a drive. But one poor punt could tilt a game, turn a crowd, or redefine a season. Ray lived with that knowledge each time he stepped onto the field. It sharpened him. It hardened him. It also carved invisible scars. His calm face hid them, but teammates who watched him prepare understood the responsibility that lived beneath his quiet ritual. Every step mattered. Every breath mattered. Every touch against the ball mattered. This was the burden of brilliance. The specialists who resented him had unknowingly revealed something deeper about Ray. Their bitterness proved his impact. He had elevated punting into a field of mastery so precise that others felt overshadowed. Ray never argued. He never defended himself. He allowed the ball to speak for him. But inside, he understood why they felt threatened. He had changed what was possible. Change always brings fear. His legacy was planted in that fear, not in hostility, but in the undeniable truth that he had reshaped the game. Al Davis added another layer to Ray's private struggle. The Raiders' owner demanded excellence without pause. Davis admired Ray, yet pushed him with a force that sometimes felt unrelenting. Their relationship was built on mutual respect, but also on pressure that wrapped tightly around Ray's career. Coaches shouted. Fans expected miracles. Davis demanded history. Ray responded with greatness, but the constant chase took a quiet toll. Perfection became both his shield and his cage. It lifted him. It confined him. It defined him. The returners who feared him added to that weight. Ray had never meant to humble them. He simply executed his craft. Yet each fair catch, each pinned drive, each collapsing pocket of space became a reminder that his talent stripped other players of their identity. They resented him for it. Some even despised him for it. Ray heard their comments in locker rooms and interviews. He felt their frustration in the way they glared up at the sky waiting for the ball to fall. Those moments left their mark. Greatness often isolates, and Ray felt that isolation more than most. He had turned the open field into a battlefield he always won, but victory sometimes arrived wrapped in loneliness. Coaches added another dimension. They believed they could refine him, reshape him, guide him. Ray respected them, but many never understood that his gift came from instinct rather than instruction. Each attempt to control him felt like a misunderstanding of who he was. The tension between art and authority lived quietly beneath his surface. He trusted his craft in a way that could not be taught, and that trust often placed him at odds with men who saw the game through diagrams rather than intuition. Their frustration with him became another truth. He carried a reminder that mastery is not always compatible with control. But the deepest wound, the one that remained even as decades passed, came from the Hall of Fame. Ray never spoke loudly about the snubs. He never attacked the selection committee. But the omission shaped him. He had transformed punting into something legendary, yet the institution built to honor legends refused to see him. Year after year, he waited. Year after year, the door stayed closed. The rejection cut deeper than he ever admitted. It was not vanity. It was validation. He had carried an entire position into history, and the silence from Canton felt like a denial of his life's work. When he was finally inducted in 2014, the applause came too late to silence the years of doubt. The honor was real, but the wound remained part of his story. In his final years, Ray's legacy grew even stronger. Young punters studied film of his form, tracing their fingers through frames that showed impossible hang time. Coaches referenced him as the blueprint for modern special teams strategy. Analysts called him the standard. Fans who once overlooked punting learned to appreciate the art he introduced to the league. And through all of it, Ray Guy remained a quiet figure, a man shaped by triumph and shadow. Ray Guy passed away in 2022 at the age of 72. His legacy endures not because of statistics, but because he redefined what one man could do in a forgotten corner of the sport. His life reminds us that greatness is not always loud. Sometimes it lives in the stillness before the ball leaves the foot. Sometimes it lives in the truths a man carries silently through the years. Ray Guy's story is the story of a legend who changed football forever, shaped by brilliance pressure and the hidden truths he kept until the end. Ray Guy's journey reminds us that greatness often hides in places most people never think to look. His life was shaped by pressure, silence, and the pursuit of a standard only he could see. He carried burdens that few understood, and he elevated a role that many believed did not deserve recognition. Now that his story has been told, one question remains for you. Which of the 5 hidden truths revealed tonight surprised you the most? Was it the cold distance from the Hall of Fame, the expectations from Al Davis, the resentment of his peers, or the quiet isolation that followed every punt he sent into the sky? Each truth shaped him. Each truth strengthened him. Each truth carried him through a career that changed football forever. If you have followed his journey this far, then you understand what makes legends unforgettable. It is not only the trophies they win or the moments that appear on highlight reels. It is the shadows beneath their success and the struggles they never speak about. This channel is dedicated to uncovering those stories, the untold conflicts, the hidden rivalries, the truths that shaped the golden era of the NFL. So if you want more documentaries that reveal the deeper side of the game, stories from the men who defined football between the 1960s and 1990s, you are in the right place. Subscribe to NFL Hidden Truths and join us as we explore the lives of the players who changed the sport forever. Their victories were unforgettable. Their secrets were powerful. Their legacies continue to shape the game we love. Thank you for watching, and thank you for keeping these legends alive.